Mia, and this is the first episode of my podcast. So, as I get further into filmmaking, I realize most of it as an art form is copying other directors. Scenes from famous films such as The Shining by Kubrick, made in 1980, are replicated in other movies. So, as an aspiring director, I obviously need to do research and watch movies. So, I thought making a podcast and reviewing the movies I watched would help me analyze and go in depth about what I just viewed. To start off, I want to talk about my favorite movie, Psycho. Psycho was made in 1960 by Alfred Hitchcock. Hitchcock is a massive name in the film industry for his creative cinematography and unique style. He directed over 50 films, but I'd argue Psycho was his most famous. Hitchcock had inspiration from the book Psycho that came out the year before, and I'll get into that later, and a classic French horror film named Les Diaboliques, which translates to The Devils. Pardon me, I don't speak French. Je ne parle français, my bad. Which the French movie was made in 1955. He loved the film so much he tried to buy the rights to it, and when that failed, he made the crew of Psycho watch the film before working on it. Both films are in black and white, and their soundtracks sound somewhat similar, so if you watch the trailer, you can see the clear influences it had. The film Psycho follows Marion Crane, a secretary who is bored with her life. She wants something different. She wants to switch up. She wants to change. So when she's given $40,000 to put in the bank by her boss, she runs away with it. And finally, when she's exhausted and caught in a thunderstorm, she pulls off to the side of the road escape. Nobody's really chasing her, so it wasn't really an escape, but mid-runaway. She pulls off to the side of the road and into the Bates Motel. The motel is completely vacant except for one young man, Norman Bates. One of my favorite scenes is when Norman and Marion are sitting in the parlor. The room is filled with bird paintings and taxidermy birds, and as I was watching, my mother pointed out that the birds behind Norman were owls, hawks, and various predator birds. The camera angle was lowered down, pointed up at him, which gives him a higher position. For lack of a better word, he was more dominant. Meanwhile, Marion's shots were higher up, as if someone was looking down at her, which makes her more vulnerable. The bird imagery behind her were smaller prey birds and stuff, and I love this foreshadowing of predator and prey. His friendly facade is just a cover for who he truly is, which is clearly shown in this scene, and that is a killer. And if you haven't seen the movie, you have had 65 years to watch it. Don't complain about spoilers. Another shot I loved was the overhead shot of Norman carrying his mother down the stairs. It's completely shot in a bird's eye view perspective, which incorporates the motif of birds. Norman was with his mother, which we find out she was overbearing and borderline abusive, or actually abusive. I don't really know which one to go with, so I'm saying borderline, but because it's shot above, you can't see his mother. You only see Norman carrying her down the stairs. Because it's shot above, I believe it shows the power dynamic between them. He's weaker than her. She's still taking over his mind. He carries the skeleton of a corpse around, taking care of her. He is a shell of a man. So, because it's shot above, you're looking down on him. Not only is it a clever way to hide the twist ending of, once again, you've had plenty of time to watch this, his mother being dead and an alter in his mind, but it also invents a sense of unease. Hitchcock did something people hadn't really seen before. He created a false reality, then destroyed it. He played into the audience's naive tendency. They only have the choice to believe what you show them. So if you show them a kind-hearted, caring man, they have no choice but to see the character that way. So of course, when Norman, in quotes, is revealed to be the killer, the audience is shocked. Anthony Perkins plays Norman. Apparently, he played this character so well, people were afraid to cast him for other films, and then when they did, he was typecast pretty much. It was hard for them to separate the art from the artist. Speaking of, yes, this is my favorite movie, but I'm also aware that Hitchcock wasn't the best role model. That doesn't mean his films impact me less, that just means I don't focus on him as a director, but instead what his work did for the industry. Basically what I mean is Old Man is bad, Old Man's work is good, and they are two separate things. So back to what I was saying previously about Psycho being based on a book. Psycho was based on a book from the year prior written by Robert Bloch. The title was also Psycho and it had the same plot. The book's killer was based off of a real life serial killer, which he was named Ed Gein. I'll get into that in a second. The book's description of Norman Bates was very different from the movie, also. The book describes him as 40, balding, overweight, and apathetic. And in the movie, he's young, I'd say somewhat attractive, and kind. Okay, now on to Ed Gein. Ed Gein was nicknamed the Butcher of Plainfield. He was a serial killer and body snatcher, killing 2 women and 1 man, and he would dig up corpses from graveyards around his hometown of Plainfield, Wisconsin, and fashion trophies out of their skin and bones. Now, I just want to note, Plainfield, Wisconsin, really? That's the name of every town in any slasher movie. So, while the murders and stuff that he did don't make him similar to the movie Norman Bates, the fact he was admitted to a mental hospital and diagnosed as insane does. Norman is shown to have a form of a personality disorder, and one of his alternate personalities is his mother. Again, not a spoiler. You should have seen this movie by now. It's been 65 years. Some fun facts about this classic, which all of these are found online at alltherightmovies.com. Thank you so much. I'm not sponsored. I just thought it was really cool. In the book, Marion's death was a lot more gruesome. The iconic film scene toned it down a bit. To give you an idea, Hitchcock said, "Oh my, no, we can't cut Janet Leigh's head off." So there was decapitation, apparently. Producers were also concerned about gore, so Hitchcock had to cut out a few frames of Marion being stabbed in the stomach. It only shows for a second, but if you look closely, you can barely see the knife going into her stomach. So if you want to see that, you have to look like kind of close and kind of slow it down, but it does somewhat enter her stomach. She gets stabbed. You can see her get stabbed, but like barely. So, speaking of the shower scene, a custom-made shower head was used for the shot of the water running. It was made so the water would shoot around the camera, and like the website said it was like 6 feet big, but like 6 feet is a lot of feet. So I'm not really sure about that. Anyway, it was made so the water would shoot around the camera, and the blood was chocolate syrup because fake blood wouldn't show up as vividly in black and white. Also, the toilet flushing was the first time a toilet flushing was shown and heard in a film ever. And in the scene where Norman bursts into the cellar to kill Lila Crane, you can barely hear him scream, "I am Norma Bates," which shows how Norman no longer is in control. Instead, it's his mother. There was a remake in '98 by Gus Van Sant. He decided to replicate the movie, shot for shot. That was weird. And with all of these interesting facts, I'm gonna wrap it up. This is my favorite film, and I can't fully explain all the levels and details and interesting facts of the movie, so go and watch it. Thank you for listening, and come back for the next episode where I will be reading an essay I wrote on the psychology involved in horror filmmaking.